back. First reaction show after the Olympic trials. They're here. We are underway. I am in the first floor of Gordon's house. Gordon is in the second floor of Gordon's house. It's all happening. Gordon, how are you?
You look like you're in a white cube, like you're in like some like sci-fi movie scene where someone is like dreaming and they're like in an empty white space because you got the white mic and everything. Just look like a dream.
I'm feeling great. I appreciate you giving me studio space. That's all I have to say here. Thanks, everybody, tuning in live right now on YouTube. Put your questions or comments in the chat. Who impressed you on day one? We're also going to introduce a new segment today because I watched the Meet with Gordon, and he said oftentimes, what are we doing here about things that were going on? And obviously there's a lot to shake your head at. There's a lot to get excited about, but what are we doing here? That's what we're going to talk about later on in the show. Let's get right into it, though, Gordon. Let's start with this world record on day one from one Ryan Krauser. He'd been knocking on the door of what was once thought to be an unbeatable mark. Popped a 23-0 earlier in the season, but just goes right out and gets the thing done in the fourth round of the shot put. 23-37, Gordon. 23-37. Smashes a 31-year-old world record. His old personal best, as I mentioned, was 23:01. The previous world record was 23:12. And the coolest part was he knew it right as he threw it. Right after it left his hands, it was like a three-point shooter just already walking back on defense and putting their hands up to celebrate. It was almost like it was the reverse of that GIF that goes everywhere with Nick Young, and he puts his hand up and the ball goes in and out. This was the opposite of that because right after it left his hands, he knew it, and he threw 23-37. 23-37. I can't get over it.
Yeah, 23. It's when you break a world record in a field event, typically it's by a centimeter, a millimeter even. In the pole vault, they always go 1 centimeter up. He broke it by almost over 30 centimeters. That's insane. Like, you don't do that. Normally a world record is such a minuscule improvement, but it makes sense that he's doing this, right? He's been throwing over 22 meters backwards blindfolded. You know it, he's going to throw it. But like 23-37, that's insane. Trey Hardy said on Twitter, world record. I seen it. Long time coming. I lost my voice. Love it. 23-37. I can't believe it. All caps. It was insane. Speaking of Trey Hardy, if you guys are watching the broadcast, Trey Hardy, he's doing good on the kale diet, looking good, looking slim, like he's a distance runner all of a sudden, going from decathlon to marathon. Anyway, but yes, Ryan Krauser, unbelievable. It makes sense. He's throwing so well that he should be flirting with the world record, and now he's breaking the world record. And overall, that competition was pretty good. I mean, the top five, you could argue, were all Olympic medalist caliber talents. And hey, if you're competing against Krauser, you're like, yeah, get the world record now in June and then have your off day in August in Tokyo, right? That's what Joe Kovacs is probably thinking. It's like, all right, get it now because I need you to have your one bad 6 throws in Tokyo. But overall, great competition. Kovacs threw well, and Peyton Oderall making the Olympic team for their top 3.
By 3 centimeters. That one was real close between him and Hill. I remember when Krauser first broke 23, and we were half joking about, hey, is he going to make 23 what 22 was? Because 22 was hard. And then he just did it over and over and over again the last couple of years. And you look at what he did in this competition outside of the world record, put that aside, 22.61, 22.55, 22.73, 22.62. That's an insane series by any standard. It just so happens that on top of that, he layered a 23-37. And so we're not even paying attention just to the consistency that Krauser brought to the series. Every single one of his throws was better than Kovacs' best throw. And what do we think Kovacs is the second best thrower in the world right now. I mean, at worst, he's, top 3, top 4 in the world. And Krauser's putting a whole series better than everybody else. It's just, it's a lot of fun to watch a guy completely in his zone right now and doing it at the highest stage. I wonder, he hasn't even come to the press conference yet, so I haven't had a chance to ask him, but how much of this was just the stage? How much of this is finally you're thrown in front of people? You're not thrown in these small competitions. Yeah, I know the crowd wasn't as big as it could have been, or crowds that when we return to full capacity crowds could be or will be. But how much of this is just, hey, it's the Olympic trials now. It's not some random meet in the middle of Georgia or in the middle of Texas or in California. It's like, this is the trials. That's going to give me those extra 20 centimeters.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking, you know how you have like the ice bucket challenge and like weird like challenges people do? You need to do the Krauser challenge. And what that will be is you have to take a weight and you got to throw it 22 meters 6 times in a row. And you can see how heavy of a weight you can get to. A shot put is 16 pounds. So clearly he's the only one in the world who can do that. But like, what weight could you throw 22 meters like 6 times in a row?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you throw a 5-pound weight, 22 meters, I guess 5 pounds. I don't know. I want to like, what's the limit when you start being like, all right, you can't do this.
It's low
because it's incredible.
It's low, and then you throw a 23-meter throw on top of that. Yeah, I don't think I'd get much above 5 or 10 pounds for me personally. It would have to be a very, very, very I don't know. Like, are you talking about like baseball style throw or shot, like actually shot put style?
I guess you have to do a shot put style to be legal, but
yeah,
I'm just thinking the idea of throwing a rock 22 meters 6 times in a row just seems very tiring. Let alone doing it once. Yeah.
So he's at the top of the all-time list now. Ryan Krauser, 23:37, takes Randy Barnes's mark off of the books. And now you look at his whole career, right? So now he's 1, 5, 6, 7, 10. So you're talking about a guy who not only does have the best mark, but all those other marks that he built up during the last couple of years when he was working up to this really completes his resume here as an all-time great. I mean, you still want to see him go and win in Tokyo to add another gold medal, but can't do it much better than that out the gate. I had a feeling, because we talked about the shot put and we talked about how far Krauser was capable of throwing, but I don't think any of us said the W word at all. And we probably should have, because in this meet, where are the events where there's a world record possible? Probably just that one, the 400 hurdles for the women, right?
Yeah.
And the men. The men too, I guess you could say, because Bry Benjamin's PB's at least in the neighborhood. But that's it. I don't think there's any other event where a world record is possible. And on day one, Krauser checked the box.
We also crowned 3 more Olympians in the only track event that had a top 3 finish to make the Olympic team. The men's 10K. It started kind of interesting in the beginning. You know, we had a bunch of college kids kind of taking the lead. Connor Mance was up front. Isai Rodriguez was there. Robert Brandt controlled the pace for a little bit. And then mid-race, you saw the U.S. Army guys take over a bit. And then basically it didn't really become the true guys who would end up being top 3 be in front of the pack until like the final 3, maybe 2 laps. But during that 28-minute race, there was like a mini story going on about the DNFs, right? You had Lopez Lemong pull out because of an injury, a hamstring injury. Eric Jenkins pull. Here's a GIF of Lopez Lemong feeling that hammy on that back turn. Hopefully this isn't a sign that his 5K is now up in the air, because, hey, man, like, is he going to be able to get through a kick of closing in a fast 54, 52-second type kick in a 5K? I don't know. And then Eric Jenkins, he kind of pulled up as well. There's more of Lemong. I love this GIF because GIFs are not video, and we can show that, right? It's great. Little edge. We can show little GIFs. But Eric Jenkins pulled out, which I think was more like, hey, I'm not making the 10K team. I got to save it for the 5K. But outside of those 2 guys going out, the story was who's going to make the team. And basically, once we knew the pace wasn't an Olympic standard pace, it was going to be 3 of 5 guys: Fisher, Kincaid, Klecker, Ben True, and Emmanuel Bohr. Bohr kind of went out early, and then finally was down to final 4. And Ben True and Klecker were neck and neck with 300 meters to go. But then Klecker was able to just make a different move. True couldn't match it. And then it basically was smooth sailing for the 2 Bowerman guys and Klecker. And that's your Olympic team: Kincaid, Fisher, Klecker. What are your thoughts on these 3 being our Team USA?
Yeah, I mean Kincaid obviously super impressive, and ever since he ran that sub 13 in the forest in Portland, you had to think he had a shot at running at this stage, performing like this. But it's a whole different ball game to do it in championship races. And in 2019 USA's, he was obviously in the mix and running really well, but he didn't have the standard, and that was kind of a quirky race there. And they were playing games with Chelimo, and it wasn't as high stakes as what this was. And this was a clutch performance by those guys. I mean, by Kincaid and Fisher and Klecker. Just it seemed like he was able to latch on, and True didn't. And once that initial move was made, there was no response. And Kincaid closing in 53.5 obviously is a terrific sign. But yeah, I think a lot of the drama went out once it got like you knew it was only between 5 people based on the standard, and you cross-referenced your world rankings numbers, so you were basically like, yes, it's these 3 plus Bohr plus True, and that's it, right? It's a 5-person race, and that's it. I mean, Galen Rupp was in the race, which made it kind of interesting. NBC was really hammering the Galen Rupp angle. I mean, 27:59. He closed in 59. He was there at the bell, and then that's the difference between Galen Rupp, the marathoner, and Galen Rupp, the 10K runner. He closes in 59, and Kincaid closes in 53. That's it, right? That's the difference.
Big difference
right there. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I thought a lot of the drama during the middle was just in who was dropping out. Lewis Johnson was super busy. Like he was catching up with everybody who dropped out. I wonder if he's going to keep that pace throughout the entire meet. Like, is he going to interview every DNF in the distance race? Yeah. Well, then NBC debuts like the dropout cam. They're like following the guys through the tunnel and underneath the stadium. It was a good look at seeing the new Hayward Field and how everything was configured. But yeah, great race. True. I talked about it in the preview show. He's made teams before, but he's also been so close so many times and has had so many near misses that you feel for him, because he always is in the mix, and you think, man, he's in a lot of 50-50 races or 50-50 kicks, and he comes out on the short end of the stick a lot of times. And I thought in this race he had an opportunity to do it, but just didn't have the closing speed. I mean, you look at, so this is True's history: 6th in 2012. He was 4th twice in 2013. Made the team in 15. He was 5th in 2016. 4th in 2017. He was 7th in 2019, but made the team though, right, because of injuries and scratches and things like that. So, yeah, so 6th in the trials in 12, 5th in 16, and then now 4th. But sure, he'd trade all those just for one.
Yeah. He's got a lot of heart, man, to keep chasing that dream after losing your sponsor. Still has another shot in this 5K, but you would think now, looking at the 5K field, it's, once you throw in a Paul Chelimo, those other younger guys, like the college kids, it might be harder to make that team. I mean, you could hope maybe that like a Kincaid and Fisher, or maybe they make the 5K and then they scratch. Do you think that's a possibility? I mean, that's a possibility, right?
It's certainly a possibility, and it's also a possibility they run it and then scratch it later, and it's a possibility they say, I want to be a double Olympian, and the 5 and 10 double is easy in air quotes to do at the Olympics. So let's just we're in good shape. Let's just keep it rolling. With people like Lamong and Jenkins, though, I remember 2016, and it was hot during the 10K race there. Legat dropped out midway, and I was thinking, oh, it's over. And then he came back later and won the 5K. And I remember Hassan Mead was like, he took his glasses off and like spiked him on the middle of the track midway through, just because he was having there was a lot of DNFs there. And some people bounced back and some people didn't. So it's impossible to know. But the fact that Lamong was an injury and it wasn't just the heat got to me, or I just didn't have it, I think that's obviously concerning. And in Lewis Johnson's report, they mentioned a specific right hamstring problem. So that's worrisome for him.
Yeah.
He's got a few days to get it together. But yeah, Kincaid, Fisher, and Klecker. So, I mean, guys who had the standard, proven guys, made the team. I don't think it can't be that big of a shock.
I am shocked that Fisher lost to Kincaid. Fisher has been kind of the best guy at Bowerman for the past year and a half. And Kincaid's like an interesting story, man. He coming out of Portland, he was kind of like a low-key, sneaky guy that maybe would have a breakout NCAA performance, but then he got tripped up in an NCAA final. And so he never really had that like marquee run in college. And so he kind of was like a low-key, like low risk, high reward type signing that Bowerman did after he graduated. And he was dealing with injuries. He had a breakout indoor 5K, but nothing was really shown yet in a meaningful race that was like, hey, you can be an Olympian or a consistent world qualifier. And then his breakout season was a season where he just didn't have the standard in anything in 2019. And now he was able to have a whole year to get the standard, and now he was ready. And he's basically doing what he did in 2019, but this time with a resume, and now he gets to represent Team USA as a result. He's had a wild career from unknown at Portland, dealing with injuries, not making teams because of no standard, to now winning the Olympic trials 10K over, I would argue, the heavy favorite, which I thought was Grant Fisher.
Mm-hmm. Let's move over to the women's 5,000 meter prelims. The second heat was all chalk, and they didn't eliminate that many people at all in this event. But I want to focus in on Abby Cooper in heat one, in what I think was one of the most exciting prelims I've ever seen. And yes, I've seen Yared Nugus's ACC prelim, but this was an incredible run. We were wondering what she was doing, and then you realize, oh, she doesn't have the standard. She's trying to run the standard. Come to find out in the press conference afterwards, her coach told her before the race, he looked at the weather forecast for Friday, and it's going to be in the 90s, and he told her, hey, if you can go for the standard, now's the time to do it, because it's probably not going to happen on the final. So you could get top 3 and it won't matter on the final because you got to get the standard. She'd only finished a couple races at all this year, so her world ranking wasn't that high. So this was, in a way, her only opportunity, her only chance, and she did it, got it by a couple seconds. The crowd, you could tell, was super behind her once they realized what was going on. And she's obviously had a journey throughout her career. You always see the shot of her falling in that race, and the Nikki Hamblin, the New Zealand runner, and her running together. But it was just, it added some life into a lot of prelims that just were barely eliminating anybody. And it was kind of fun just to see someone do a pure, flat out solo effort.
Yeah. I mean, we remember Abby D in the Dartmouth days, dominating the fields, especially being in the Ivy League. Will Gohegan tweeted that was a Heps Abby gap. And it wasn't like, she didn't plan it either, because she mentioned in the press conference that going into the race, it wasn't going to be like, she didn't go for it from the gun. She waited like a mile before she actually tried to run the standard.
Right. The coach told her ahead of time, but I think it was a little bit of wait and see. I mean, you can look at the splits here. So she goes, I just lost it. Man, literally just lost it. You said it was about, was it 2K in or just before 2K?
It was like 1,800, 1,600 in. That's when she started hitting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's running 75s, which is 15:37 pace, right? And then a 76. And then she starts from 1,800 to 2,200. She goes a 70. And that's when she broke away. Then 70, 71, 73, 72, 72, 71, 70, and then closes with a 68.9. I think it was in her head that she wanted to do it, but I also think she was maybe testing the waters a bit, seeing if people were maybe trying. Maybe she knew she was going to launch that move, and she's like, I need to run with people for as long as I can. Like, I'm going to have them carry me for as long as they can before I set off on this solo trek. And again, she could have easily qualified because they barely eliminated anybody. But the whole point was to run under 15:10, so she'd have the Olympic Games standard, so she could go to Tokyo if she finishes top 3. Now, top 3 is going to be ridiculously difficult to do in an event where Rachel Schneider, Josette Norris, Krisha Swiger, and Elise Cranny are looking like a really solid top 4. But she at least gave herself a chance. That's all you can ask for.
You mentioned, I'm going to go into it now. I know we're only 20 minutes into the pod, but I just got to get over it. What were we thinking right now with this first day of competition? Yes, we had a world record.
What are we doing here?
Yes, we had a great 10K, but what are we doing here? Let's bring up the results. Let's start with the women's 1500. Travis, can you bring up the women's 1500 results? And scroll down to the women's 1500 results. We'll bring them up on the screen shortly here. We'll get them
going. People know.
All right. Basically, if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, 30 women entered. 2 of them were DNSs. So there's only 28 women who were on the starting line, and 24 moved on to the next round. So 24 of the 28 field went on. In the 5K, it was very similar to that. There was like 6 DNSs because a lot of them were 1,500 meter runners who DNS'd, and they only eliminated like 4 women again in the 5K. In the 5K, 4 women got eliminated. It went from 20 to 16. You can see this also in a little bit in the 400s, but not as much. It really was more in these 5Ks and 1500s. Why are we having a pointless first round in the 1500 and a pointless prelim in the 5K? I get it.
Yeah.
They're doing it because it's what the Olympic schedule is like, and you want to simulate the Olympics. If you're going to do that, then invite the amount of people that are in the Olympics. Don't have a field of 20 go down to 16. Have a field of 30 go down to 16. What are we doing here? I don't get it. It's not fun TV.
Agree.
If Abby Cooper doesn't do what she did, what are we watching? Yeah. We're just watching people lollygog. Okay, we all ran 15:40. All right, we're done. It's stupid. Come on.
Yeah, so I think a couple issues here that are going on. One, you're right, is the field size, and then 2 is the trying to mimic the exact race structure of the Olympics, which again, I get why they do that. I think it makes sense, especially with the doubles. But then when you're actually watching it and you're trying to get excited about it and you're like, oh, I haven't seen such and such in so long. And then you watch it for a couple laps and you're like, all right, cool. Wait, how many people are they eliminating in this? Like, you're really just seeing a warm-up round. You're really seeing a warm-up round. And you're eliminating people who were either really, really low ranked or who just didn't have the fitness coming in because of an injury or some sort of issue, but are trying to give it a shot. And, it's awesome that they're there and I admire them going for it. But you needed 1542, is that 1542 to qualify for the women's, and then for the women's 5,000 and then in the 1,500, 414. I mean, great times, but just there's no drama in who's getting cut. And then what's funny is then the opposite happens is then you go from semis to finals and it's like, whoa, how many people go?
Yeah.
It's like barely anybody. But yeah, that second heat, we did the math and it was the second heat of the 5K. There wasn't enough people in it to eliminate enough people in the first heat, even if they all ran super fast. Like Taylor Werner was outside the big Qs, but she should have gotten a big Q because mathematically she was already in based on how many people were left. Like only 20 women ran those 10K heat, or 5K heats, 20 total between 2 heats. I guess,
So, yeah.
Part of me thinks if you know it's going to be 20, put them at least in one race.
Straight final.
Merry
Christmas. Straight final.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate everybody who's tuned in to the podcast live stream. Put your questions in the chat. We got one here from Laura who says, what if the guys in the top 3 make it in the 5? Could True then go in the 10K? Yes, is the answer to that question. He definitely could. And I just mentioned a situation, 2019, where True was way back finishing in the 5K, but because of injuries and standard issues, he got to go. Now, the standard is not at play in the same way that it was in 2019 with these guys, because we know that the top 3 had standards, but 4th can be heartbreaking. 4th is heartbreaking, let me clarify. But there's been a lot of people who have been upgraded, right, for a variety of reasons, who by the time the Olympics come around do actually get to run. But right now he is in the outside looking in. Put more questions in the chat if you got them. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Mm-hmm.
If you're Ben True, would you I guess I'm trying to think of a scenario where losing to them is better than beating them. I don't think that's a situation. I was thinking, like, would it make sense?
Not how
Like, you say he
sports
could
work,
beat
Gordon.
Fisher. If he could beat Fisher, but he chooses not to because he knows if Fisher beats him, he'll then scratch the 10K and he gets the 10K. Well, it doesn't make any sense because he hates the 10K anyway. So I don't know. I'm talking some weird like tanking situation in track and field which doesn't exist. So I take it back.
Look at the 5K. I mean, knowing what we know now, and we're going to move off this in a second, and we'll go to the other events here. But knowing what we know now, based on the 10K, like does that? I mean, that obviously is going to influence your 5,000 meter picks, correct?
Yeah, because you can argue. I think You can argue Klecker is going to be like a lot more loose and maybe not be as much of a threat because he's like, I got my spot. Like it's kind of like you're running it more for fun. You can say same thing with Fisher and Kincaid. They could be like, they know they have a backup plan, so they can fall off. Lopez is dealing with that injury. Eric Jenkins, you don't know.
Yeah.
If I had to update my 5K picks, my 5K picks I think stay the same. My 5K pick, I still have Fisher, Chalimo, and Cooper Tier. But if I had Kincaid in my 5K, maybe I would take him out. I don't know because I'd be like, hey, he's in the 10K. I don't know. You don't know what these kids want, right? Do they want to be 10K? You just don't
kids.
know.
What do these kids want? That's crazy. No, Trevor, we have not talked women's 100 yet. We're going to get there. Thoughts on Mance from Sigma Stu, Gordon?
He runs the way he's been running since his 22-year-old freshman year. I mean, he keeps going, chugging up front. He's finished well. He finished fifth. Beat Galen Rupp, the battle of cross-country American champions. Rupp versus Mance. Rupp got the best of, Mance got the best of Rupp just by a hair. I hope Mance, do you think Mance is coming back to college, or do you think he's ready to kind of go pro and focus on half marathon, marathoning, and 10K in the future and all that stuff?
I think he'll come back, but I don't know. That's just a guess. It's great experience, man. He got fifth in an Olympic trials.
So Chris Derrick reminds me of Chris Derrick. Yeah,
he finished 1 second behind Ben True, and 1 second or a tenth of a second in front of Galen Rupp. That's just great. That's great experience. So I think we'll see him in the future. I think the key is just the closing. Taking that closing speed to the next level and being able to close like the guys up front. Getting a lot of questions about the 100. Gordon, a lot of questions about the 100.
Okay, what are the questions about the 100? Because we watched everyone who was good qualify. I guess we did see a 1085 or 1084, which is pretty damn quick for a first round. And
Sha'Carri Richardson did that, by the way, if people are wondering.
Yeah, Sha'Carri Richardson ran 1084. And we didn't have a podcast since Blessing ran her 1063 wind aided. So the women's 100 right now is just, there's a lot of fast things going on. It's all happened in NCAAs. You see a first round be 1 in 10.8. You saw what Blessing did it back in Nigeria. Like, it's just, I'm excited I want the Olympic 100 meter final to get here as soon as possible. But I think we're going to see a 10.7 at least in the final from Richardson. What do you think? Over, under 10. I'll set the over under at 10.75.
Under. I think we might see a 10.6. I'd put the over under at 10.72, what she's run before. Okay. Yeah, I thought she looked completely in control, real smooth. I've been kind of trying to figure out how fast this track is, and we don't have a ton of data on it, but 1084, that seems to be her baseline, and then I think she'll just ramp up from there. Javian Oliver ran really well and broke 11 seconds. So did Kayla White. Gabby Thomas, who's doubling, we know her more as a 200-meter runner, ran 11 flat. Tiana Daniels and Aaliyah Hobbs, we talked about, are the veterans. It's funny to call Tiana Daniels a veteran, but she's been out of college for a couple of years and already made a team. They looked pretty good. They're the 5th and 6th fastest qualifiers. Bryant was solid. Tamara Clark didn't qualify, which is a big surprise. And Twanisha Terry, who was my pick to be on the team, which I got some grief for. I got some people saying, what about Cambria Sturgis? Cambria Sturgis looked really good. She ran 11:15, but she won her heat. and Tanisha Cherry was 5th in her heat, made it through on time. So right now Sturgis looks like the better pick, but Clark being out, I think, was the biggest surprise.
Yeah, Clark coming out. I did not see that coming. Be able to focus, kind of maybe rebounding that 200. Sturgis is looking good, man. Whenever she runs these races, she just looks like she doesn't. It's just like checking into work and going home. It's like, I'm here. I'm going to run 10-9 and move on. Like, it's just like super simple and easy for her, which is like kind of a great headspace to be in for such a high pressure event like the 100. I mean, I'm not changing my order, I don't think. I guess Terry is kind of the one that you kind of like, but maybe she's had a bad day, a bad start, Guess we'll know more about who they are once we get to the semis. Yeah.
Listen, I love staying with my picks regardless, but how many times, and someone can point this out if it's happened that you can remember, how many times has someone finished 5th in their opening heat and gone on to make the team or finish top 3? Like, that's hard to do. That's hard to do because the momentum is clearly going in the other direction. Not saying it's impossible and it can't be done, but in 100 where you're not really, it's not like a 1,500 meter prelim where you're just shutting things down early and you're looking around and you don't care about a lane draw or anything like that. Like, this is the 100. So that would be worrying if you're pulling for her, but I think it's going to be real. I think it's going to be real exciting. Because again, we have this convergence of the vets and the younger folks in here. Richardson is floating above it all, but I think we're going to see fast times from 2nd and 3rd too. I think Sha'Carri is going to win. I think she's going to win comfortably, but I don't think it's going to be a situation where 11:01 is going to get you on the team. I think at minimum, I mean, you might need even like a 10-9 low. I think you're going to see some PRs from the top 3 here, and it fits in, as you mentioned, with the trend right now all across the world with women's 100 meter running. Who would you say impressed you the most other than Richardson? Who outperformed their ranking going in or their seeding going in the most in the women's 100?
To me, it was Tiana Daniels. I mean, she wasn't running anywhere close to 11 flat the entire regular season. And to come out in your first race, go 11:02, I thought it was like, okay, you're clearly timing your fitness correctly. Mm-hmm. And I think with her experience, she should be a threat to, potentially grab a 3rd place finish. And Gabby Thomas looked good too. So those are my 2 that I would say most impressed me.
We got a lot of people in the chat saying, what about this event? What about that event? We're going to get to all the running events. That's the thing about the show. Every night, we're going to get to every single event. So you don't have to worry about it. We got it all. We got it all in there. Gordon and I watched it together. We took notes. Gordon vomited while watching the Sixers. It was a very intense evening over here in Austin, Texas. But we got it all. We got it all covered. So you don't need to worry about us
do it again on Sunday.
On event. Yeah, got to do it again on Sunday. So rest up, I guess, Gordon. So let's move now to let's stick with the sprints here. Let's talk about the men's and women's 400. Men's 400 surprises, people that overperformed or underperformed. Trevor Stewart, top qualifier. Elijah Godwin looked good. LaShawn Merritt, the final qualifier. Randolph Ross got through, but didn't look as sharp, obviously, as he did at NCAAs because that's a really high standard. Kamari Montgomery didn't make it. Michael Norman didn't like his race, but that's kind of par for the course with Michael Norman. What did you think about the men's side of things?
Yeah, I was surprised Randolph Ross was 3rd in his heat. I was surprised that Will London won his heat because we hadn't said Will London doing much. I was surprised seeing Elijah Godwin do well. Michael Norman, I wasn't that surprised. It's like, whatever. He's thinking bigger and greater things. And LaShawn Merritt holding on and finding a way to make it to a semifinal. The odds of him making it to a final will be wild. But if he does find a way to make a final, he's on the Olympic team because they take the 8 400 meter run. Like, if you make the final, if they have an 8 field final, you go to the Olympics because there's the co-ed relay. They take 6 for the relay and then an extra 2 for the co-ed relay. So you just got to make that final and you're on the 4x4. I'm sure that's what LaShawn Merritt's thinking. Just got to make the final.
Yeah. Michael Johnson sent out this tweet, which I thought was interesting. I really like Michael Norman. Huge talent, but he makes me worry. Never looks confident. Never sounds confident. Hoping to see consistent domination from him soon. It's definitely in him. I think that's just Michael Norman's personality in terms of how he sounds and how he talks. He seems like a guy who's, he's self-deprecating, does not take himself too seriously. We're basing all of Michael Norman's big meet performances pretty much on 2019 World Championships. That's it. He got beat at US Trials by Fred Kerley, but Fred Kerley ran an amazing race, and both those guys ran really fast. He picked up an injury, went to Doha, didn't go well. 2020, the Olympics were canceled, and now we're in 2021. And I think we're falling into the same trap, I think, that you did almost with Brazier, where it's like, is he a big meet runner? And it's like, well, he's 20, or like he's only been through this a couple 20, times.
Yeah.
No, at the time he was only 20.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Like when he got DQ'd at World Indoors, it's like, this is becoming a trend. It was kind of a weird fluke thing. Like they DQ'd everybody at World Indoors that year. You were in the media zone and you got a red card and you didn't even know why.
Yeah.
So I think Norman will be fine. I think what happens with these races is he goes and runs, he errs on the conservative side in the prelims. Because I remember in Doha, I interviewed him right after the race, and it was kind of a similar interview that he gave to Lewis Johnson tonight, where he said, Coach Watch is going to be mad at me. Like that was not the plan because he left it too late. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, he was probably being cautious because he was nursing an injury, and that's what took him out of the next heat, and then he was out. So it really wasn't about tactics. This, I think he's fine. I just think he's trying to conserve. I think he's smart. But it's like, if you're saying what he says, hoping to see consistent domination from him soon, he's won all of his races this year.
Except for this one.
Right? Okay, but it's prelim. I don't really care that much about the prelim. But any Diamond Leagues he's won. He's won an NCAA title. He's run 43.5. He is not someone I worry about in terms of big meet performances. He just hasn't had a ton of reps at it, but the reps that he has had has been pretty good when you put aside the one blip in 2019.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. I think Michael Norman should break Michael Johnson's record and then get this tweet screenshotted and put on a t-shirt and then be like, is this confident?
I do like Michael Johnson it's just like taking shots at people. I think that's fun as he's playing the role of like elder statesman like they do in the NFL or the NBA, and then all the young guys be like, why are the old guys why don't they pass the torch already? Like why don't they just or why aren't they happy for us?
Like the Shaq and Charles Barkley. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, hey, you don't even know what it's like to be in this era. I just thought it was interesting. I mean, when it says never looks confident or sounds confident, I don't know what that means. I mean, would you rather have somebody with false bravado? Hey, and listen, American record is held still by Michael Johnson. So if Michael Norman does end up breaking it, he could then definitely put the tweet on the shirt and be like, hey, am I confident now? Because I'm ahead of you in the all-time list. Women's side of the foreign, Felix looked strong. Kaylin Whitney, that was a surprise, got a PB. Waddle & Jonathas ran the best race of the year and looked like the Waddle & Jonathas of 2019, which is a good sign for her. And Kendall Ellis, I thought was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Waddle & Jonathas run well, that makes the team harder to make because we didn't know if she was back in being a 50-0 type runner, and clearly she's able to do that here in the prelim. With Irby running still consistently, Felix, she was fourth here overall. Mm-hmm. What's your confidence level that she can be top 3?
High. Still very high.
High?
Yeah. I think this was a good opening round for her. I thought that she didn't exert herself too much. Still got the win, 50.99. I think of the people, this didn't really eliminate anybody. There was nobody who we thought that would be a factor that totally showed that they aren't ready. Like Phyllis Francis, ran 51.3 and finished fourth in her heat and still advanced. But we had talked before about how it'd been a couple of years since she had run a really strong race. I guess, I mean, Quinter Hayes only ran 52, but she shut it down super early. So it's like if you're looking at it just based on time. But I think you have Hayes, you have Jonathas, you have Irby. I think you add in maybe Whitney, maybe, and then you have Felix, Ellis, and Beard as that group. So we'll see after the semi. We'll get the answer very quickly about who's going to make it to the final. But I have no doubt that Felix will make it through to the final, and I'm feeling confident she's gonna make it. I think it's no one showed up and like blasted everybody for 300 meters and then jogged in and ran 50.9. And Athing Mo didn't appear on the track, which I think was another possibility that is big for any of the 400 meter women.
Yeah, it is possible. Maybe if we know the way USATF does their whole who's in, who's not in on the start list, as we saw what happened the past 48 hours, Shelby Ulan. Yeah. Maybe Athing Mo is like, hey, I'm coming. We'll see. But yeah, nothing too crazy though. I thought in these 400s. I mean,
no, but I think if you're going in and your whole rooting interest was like Allison Felix, I think you'd be concerned about Jonathan showing that form, and you'd probably be concerned about Whitney. But other than that, I think you're okay with where you're at after the first round. You've done this before, can really lean on that experience. You won your heat, and you know exactly what you need to do to win this event. And I think the semis tomorrow. Oh, they already have the heats out. Here we go. So now we can look and see who's in her heat for tomorrow. She's in heat 1 with Hastings, Francis, Stepter, Anderson, Ellis, Beard, and Diggs. So it's top 3 plus the next 4 fastest.
We should save talking about tomorrow at the end of the pod.
Hold on. Top 3. Well, this is the end of the pod. Top 3 in each semi plus the next 2 fastest. I want to put a bow on the 400.
She's okay, put the bow. Tie it.
Bow is on the 400.
And the bow has been placed. Okay. Men's 800. Everyone gets through. But there are a couple of question marks, I felt like. There were some interesting things that happened. Brazier kind of got boxed, but he was fine. Jewett did well in a slow race, which I thought was impressive. Hopple and Murphy and Harris and all the big guns got through. There was, though, a little question about Hopple, where during the press conference, one of the journalists asked Hopple if he's hurt, and Hopple kind of ignored the question. Mm-hmm. Should we be concerned about Hopple being a lock with Brazier?
Did he look hurt when he ran? Or was this more a question about, hey, you haven't been running any of these, you haven't run a race in the last month. Is there anything wrong? Or was it based on how he ran? Because he looked Bryce Hopple-y to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't even think to ask that question. But the fact that he kind of ignored it makes you think maybe there's something, but maybe he's clearly not injured, so that's why he ignored it. He's like, what? He didn't even remember the question because it didn't make sense to him. So
well, and then they asked Brazier, like, were you limping or something? Or did you have an injury? And then he just said no. And I mean, Brazier looked fine. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see any issue with Brazier other than he got boxed, but Sawinski moved out and he was able to slide in. That inside pass move happens a lot when you're in second because the person in first does tend to drift a little bit. And it wasn't unrealistic for Brazier to tactically put himself in that position. I think he probably knew that eventually the rail would open up and he'd be able to go by. You know what's weird about injuries in track and field? I know they don't want to have any excuses, but the reason why you disclose injuries in other sports is because you don't want opponents attacking them. You don't want someone to know that your right arm hurts because then they'll try to hit you in the right arm or they'll attack you at that pressure point. But in track, like, what are they going to do if Bryce Hopple said, I sprained my ankle? Are they going to be like, ooh, Bryce Hopple, sprained ankle. Let's really go at him from the gun. Really put pressure on it. It's an 800. That's what they're doing anyway.
It's true. I want to give a big shout out, though, to Shane Strike of Lipscomb. He qualified. I think he's going to be the Craig Engels of 2016.
Explain.
He's got a mullet going a little bit.
Oh,
He's kind of has that old school move of like not really winning any race, but kicking well in the final 50 to find a way to sneak on to the next round. That's what Craig Engels did in 2016, where he kept on finding ways to make a final in both the 8 and the 15. A couple of them had to deal with some DQs, but he made it, and that kind of took off his career. Shane Strike, Lipscomb, he's my fun wild card of the 800. I hope he makes the final out of the second out of the semifinals, so I can cheer for him. But this is a Shane Strike fan podcast until the end of the 800. So we should get sponsorship.
So yeah, you were big on Lipscomb. You learned the fight song, which I thought was a very committed Gordon Mack. When it comes to Brazier and Hoppel and Murphy and all these guys, I think we'll know tomorrow in the semis. I think the difference between the first round and a semi in the 800 and the 1500 in particular is massive. So different. So we'll know. They'll actually get put under pressure in these heats. Can I mention the semi heats for tomorrow, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, well, now let's talk about tomorrow. Let's talk about tomorrow. So, Travis, this is the clip. What is going down on day 2 of the Olympic trials? Kevin, hit me. What's going down?
Well, it's going to be highlighted by the women's 100-meter final at the end of the night. But we also have semis in the men's 400 and women's 400, and in the men's 800 and women's 1500. We'll also see the men's 100 open up. But it really is that women's 100-meter final where we'll probably see something special from Sha'Carri Richardson, because that's what she seems to produce over and over and over again. Let's dig in, though, I want to, on some of these semis, if we could.
The day of the semis. That's what they call it. The great day of semis. You got women's, start the women's 15. Women's 15 semis. Let's bring that one up. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Do you think anything chaos can happen here in this women's 15 semi?
Of course. And the fact that things were pretty chalky today leads me to believe that we're going to see some upsets tomorrow. So top 5 in each semi plus the next 2 fastest. I mean, Ellie Purrier St. Pierre looked really good as per usual. I think there was not any shocking results. I thought Jenny Simpson looked solid there. She ran 4:10, which coincidentally was the time of her first 1500 of the year. She's only run 3 now, but I think every race that she runs, she gets another one under her belt. What do you think about these?
Well, the death heat, the death heat is heat 2, because heat 2 has Danny Jones, who can kick, El Perrier St. Pierre, great new name for the record, Shannon Osika, who's 4.0, and Sinclair Johnson, who we know can, when she's all put together, she can put down a good mark, which she did in 2019. So that's 4 athletes that are like legitimate. Mm-hmm. So to get into that top 5, I feel like it's going to be very hard to get the big Q. And if it's slow, then it gets even harder, right? If the first heat goes out fast and second heat's like chilling, that's the death heat in my mind, is heat 2 of the women's 1500.
I mean, heat 1's pretty tough too. Hiltz, Simpson, McGee, McLean.
Come on, you can't do that though. You can't put Simpson as like, she's running 408, 406. Like, the people who have been running well this year, you know. Sure.
Okay. It did break down along those lines. I agree with you. The men's 800 semis. So you have Murphy, Jewett, Hoppel, Alvarado in one heat. And then in the second heat, you have Sawinski, Windle, Miller, Kidder, Brazier, Rhodes, Dolan, and Harris. I think heat 2 is what do we call these? The heat of death?
Heat of death. Heat 2? Death heat. Yeah, heat 2. Yeah. I mean, having Brazier, Harris, and Miller all in the same heat, and Kidder, who ran well, surprisingly well, and Sawinski, who was right up there with it. I think that's going to be the faster heat if it goes out honest. So, yeah, definitely death heat is heat 2. I don't see anything crazy happening, though. I mean, especially because they used to do crazy qualifying where they would just do top 4 and top 4, which I never understood. But luckily, they're not doing that here. It's top 3 and then next 2 fastest times. But I remember in 2016, it was just top 4, which made no sense. But top 3 with 2 fastest on time. Yeah, Heat 2 is a death heat.
On the topic of the men's 800, Ezra in the chat says, did Finley McClear from Miami of Ohio run in the 800? I thought he'd get second at NCAA, so I'd assume he'd run.
Hopefully, he's trolling me. Or if he's not, then God bless you.
He represents Great Britain. It's funny. It's funny that people keep.
I'm taking all my appreciation of Finley McClear and I'm putting it into Shane Strike. That's what I'm doing.
Good.
Again, this is the Shane Strike podcast until he goes home devastated or goes home victorious. Who knows?
Women's 800, women's 400. Excuse me. Women's 800 has not happened yet. Top 3 plus the next 2. So I'll just read the names: Hastings, Francis, Stepter, Baines, Felix, Anderson, Ellis, Beard, and then Diggs, and then Heat 2, Robinson, Bechtel, Whitney, Jonathan, Irby, Hayes, Manson, and Avini. Again,
I'll go Heat 2 again.
To repeat what I said before, I think it's Heat. I think it's Heat 1 because Anderson, you talked about, I think is a bit of a wild card, and Ellis, Beard, and Felix are going to be solid, and Talitha Diggs is just coming off a runner-up finish at NCAAs. I think 1 is the harder Heat.
It's true.
But two, you got Whitney, Jonathan, Irby, and Hayes in the middle of it. Yeah. I think that probably will end up being the 8 that I named right there, or maybe I named 9. But that'll be the crux of it. And then we have
men's 4.
So my pick was Norman, Cherry, and Randolph Ross. Randolph Ross is going to be in lane 4, so he's still got a decent lane. I don't feel as confident in him as I did before, but then I'm thinking, why am I reading that much into a first round? I should probably wait what he did at the NCAA championships a bit more than that. I think we'll see, did Michael Norman read Michael Johnson's tweet? I think we'll see. If he goes out and rips a 43.8, then we'll say, hey, he was online last night. But I think you're going to see a fair amount of college kids get through. I think it's completely reasonable to see Godwin, Williams, Ross, and Stewart. I think the over under would almost be 4 college kids to the finals.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You look at the first heat. The first heat has Ja'Cory Patterson, who's a college kid, Tyler Johnson, Godwin, Williams, Willie, and Dedmon. 6 of the 8 people are college kids. So we're going to get a lot of college kids into this final.
Yeah. Okay. And then the women's 100. That's the only thing that's left. So we've already done the predictions. I don't want to change too much based on what we saw today. As I said, I think you have to worry about that 3rd spot, but I'm rolling still with Richardson and Oliver 1 and 2. Yeah, Felix is ready. 1 step at a time, 1 day at a time. Day 1, check. That's right. She was solid. Out there.
Do you think she wrote that caption or someone wrote that for her?
So I didn't know this was a thing, but people really stress out about Instagram captions. And people have told me before, they're like, I'm not good at Instagram captions. And I said, is that really something that you think about? And there's probably people out there that are paid to write really good Instagram captions. I don't do Instagram barely at all, so I don't know.
And there's 2 types of captions. There's the ones that Allison just did where it's like kind of stoic, short, sweet, with maybe a little bit of an emoji check mark. But then you have the pour out your heart 10,000 word essay about, the breakup you're going through with a watermelon, and it's just like, okay, it's watermelon. It's fine. People take pictures of fruit and then talk about the time that they got in trouble with, the law. I don't know.
Listen, I don't know what you're talking about at all, but here's what's going to happen. If people want to put questions in the chat, you have 60 seconds to put questions, predictions, whatever in the chat. We'll take a couple minutes to answer them. And while we do that, Gordon will have his latest installment of 60 Seconds of Sixers. Ready, set, go.
My Sixers are back from the dead. It was hard dealing with game 5, but this is what I told myself. I told myself that for some reason, Sixers fans are in a weird time universe where they're forced to watch game 6 before game 5 and game 5 after game 6, meaning in reality, the Sixers went up 3-2 and then they blew that lead to go back down 3-3 for game 7. It wasn't the other way around. Everything's normal. Sixers are going to win by 25 in Philly with Ben Simmons on the bench, apparently, because he can't do anything except pass and defend. He's becoming Matisse Thybulle, but you pay him $35 million. I don't know what's going on. Anyway,
10 seconds.
It's okay, 9, though. We just got to get this. 8, we just got to get the win 7, on Father's Day. Embiid's a new father.
5,
You're gonna have to watch it with
3,
me, Kevin. It's gonna be great.
2,
hopefully, I'm in a good mood
1.
for the Sunday podcast. That's all I got to say.
Time is up. Let me just tell people who are watching and listening. I watched sort of the game with Gordon because everything was going on at once. He's a complete lunatic. It's not even debatable. I mean, I thought I was bad when my teams were involved. Completely unhinged. Not screaming, but just in a mood. And then when it got close at the end, wandering around, I wasn't allowed to like touch that. All the superstitions were out. It was very, very interesting. Let's jump into the chat here real quick. Does Kevin now have tier on his 5K team after watching the 10? That's a great question because I'm looking at Gordon's 5K rankings. Fisher, Chalimo, Tier, Lamong, Bohr, McGorty, Hawker, Kincaid, Klecker, Nico Young, and Ben True. So if you take Lamong out if he's hurt, if you put McGorty in the steeple. Yeah, it's like the amount of people left are pretty low. I mean, you feel good about Tier mixing it up with those guys. But, I mean, I don't want to change my picks. But, yeah, those guys who were hurt today, who did not finish the 10K, I don't think you're very optimistic about it. Just because Bernard Legat did it in 2016 doesn't mean it's gonna happen. Will Doc Rivers get fired after the Sixers loss? No, we can't do that now. We're staying on track.
Not yet.
Any concern for Michael Norman? I don't know.
No,
why are people concerned about Michael Norman?
I don't know.
Of all the people to be concerned about, why are people concerned about Michael Norman? I don't understand.
Maybe because we did a whole segment about it. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I mean, people watched and they probably saw the Michael Johnson tweet and they thought he's in peril. I think he's fine. A lot of people asking about Twanisha Terry. Yeah, I would be surprised if she's able to rally and get on the team. I think if she's able to make the final, I think it would be a big success. I think two things are happening in that race. The veterans are rallying and the college like Sturgis is holding. I think that's, and you get down to only a few spots. All it takes is a couple people ahead of you that you didn't anticipate, and then you're quickly out of the mix. But Gordon mentioned Tiana Daniels. I was talking about JV and Oliver. They came to play. They were ready. Gabby Thomas. They were all there. So that just makes things much tougher. So I think if she gets through to her heat is. Let's see. She's in lane 1 in a heat with Desiree Bryant, Aaliyah Hobbs, Javen Oliver, Gabby Thomas, Micaiah Briscoe, English Gardner, and a Kinnison. That's a tough heat. that's a tough heat, and it's top 3 plus the next 2 fastest. I mean, they're all tough heats at this point, right? We talked that you can cruise through the first round, and then it turns quickly into this is real tough.
You know what? This may be coming from left field, and it could be completely not real, but part of track and field is not just physical. There's a mental aspect. And her coach, right after they won a national title, is leaving for Georgia, Carol Smith. So she's now Georgia. So maybe dealing with like that coaching change, like, hey, my coach that I've had for 4 years is going across the country, and you're kind of like dealing with that. And I know like that's not something that I'm sure she's still coaching her here through the trials. It's not like she got on the plane to Georgia already, but maybe that's a factor of like dealing with like the high of you're winning a national championship and then the low of like, oh, my coach is leaving and now I got to figure out what I'm doing with the rest of my career. I don't know if I want to move to Georgia and follow her, this, that, and the other thing. That could be a factor. I'm not saying it is, but hey, mental games are a thing. I talk about, you wonder if the whole Shelby Houlihan story is going to affect the Bowerman athletes. Well, so far, it hasn't affected Kincaid and Fisher because they just easily went 1-2. In the 10K, the women, we have yet to really see if they haven't really been challenged yet. But mental is a part of the game, and when it's outside distractions, it could mess up. It can hit you on the track, so that could be a factor.
And I know I said before, hey, like fifth in the heat, that's tough to rebound from. It is the 100. Maybe there was just some issue with the start. Maybe that's able to get cleaned up. Again, I didn't get a chance yet to watch all the replays of the race and figure out if you could see what the issue was with her. But my point is more, it's like the competition is very stiff. So it's like you're going to have to figure out a way to run, another 10-9 type of race here. I'm going to go quickly through these other questions. Why did Cranny DNS the 15? Because she wanted to run the 5.
Yeah.
DC Knoll asks Ellie Hennis, a contender in the 5. She looked good today.
I mean, everyone looked good in the 5, so no, not in my mind yet.
I think we got.
There's just a different tier. Yeah, there's a different tier.
You got Norris, you got Schneider, you got Cranny, you got Schweizer, right? Yeah. That's the top tier. Those 4. Yeah. Do you think Lopez is going to try the 5K? If this was I put him as questionable. If this was a major sport like football or basketball, this was questionable. Jim says, if Grant Fisher repped Canada, because remember he had the opportunity, right?
He did.
Where do they rank among distance powers right now? Sneaky smart move to go with choosing to race for Team USA. Yeah, he'd have Justin Knight and Mohamed, but Canada would be nuts right now. Canada would be going wild. They got a lot of bodies up there.
That would be fun. You think he made the harder decision, but he might have actually made the easier decision. Looking back on it, it's crazy.
Someone have Gatlin retires if he doesn't make top 3. No, I think he'd run on the relay. So I think as long as he gets in the top 6.
Top 6.
Oh, I think he's gonna do the home world championships next year. I think he'll come back for next year.
I don't know.
And then the year after that, and the year after that, and he's never gonna retire. How do you feel about Nico, being that he had more time to focus on the trials?
I think low-key Nico might actually run really well because he didn't do NCAAs, and I think he's a talent, and I think he had a bad day or bad race in a weird time trial type, like prelim type competition, and I think Nico Young will make the final and finish top 10. I don't think he's gonna be top 3, but I could see him finishing between 7 and 10. That'll be
Ethan asks, worried about Bryce Hoppel. I'm not.
No.
If the injury thing didn't get brought up in the press conference, it would not have been in my mind based on running. I know other people in the chat, Kyle says Hoppel did not look great to me. But that's the tough thing. You don't know if they're just managing effort or if there's an actual issue. Frank asks, should Herta have entered the 15 instead of the 800?
Maybe. Yeah. Especially when you take Shelby out, the 15 just becomes a 2-spot opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. With L Purier basically being the only lock, and then there's 2 spots open.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for all the questions and the comments.
Hey, one last thing.
Yeah.
One last thing. Tomorrow, the men's 100-meter first round, Heat 4, has Noah Lyles, Ronnie Baker, and Fred Curley. So we see it right away in Heat 4. Especially Baker going up against Curley, because Baker talked about on our site about getting to race Curley in his event. I'm excited to see that. Lyles, Baker, and Curley in the first round. That'll be fun.
The track gods are smiling on us with these heat sheets. That's good. That's good. Okay, so we'll be back tomorrow again to recap it. You can tune in live right after the last event to the FloTrack podcast YouTube channel. Stay tuned to FloTrack for all the post-race interviews, insight, analysis.
Check out our new site.
There's a new site. Look, you can find everything. It's podcast heavy, folks. So if you're a podcast fan, you'll love the new site. Thanks to Colt for producing. Thanks to Travis for producing. Thanks to my new roommate, Gordon Mack, who lives upstairs. Gordon, I'm moving in. You don't have any kids. I have 3 at home. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.